All right, welcome everybody. We will call this meeting to order on September 9th at 5:30 PM. We'll do a quick roll call. Trustee Constant is here, Trustee Coleman's here, Trustee Hall here, Trustee Franz, and Trustee Schutz. Hi. All right, item 1.3, a motion to amend or adopt the agenda. I do have a motion to amend, if I can entertain that.
I just have one
Okay.
request. I
Yes.
have a, wish I could have talked to you sooner, but I have a work commitment that may require me to leave early. And so I was hoping, and since to me it logically follows the consent, to talk about our two discussion items that are policy related after consent. So just a request to move it up too.
I would second that if we need to second.
Okay. Discussion or other options?
That sounds good to me. I think that's an important discussion for you to be here for.
Roll call vote or no? We can just do a voice vote. So all those in favor of moving 8.7 and 8.8 to, did you say immediately after consent?
Yeah, because it follows, so to be where, I guess 8.1 is.
So would it be before the public hearing as well?
We have a public hearing.
That won't be very long.
Public hearing 7.1, right? Oh, I'm sorry, it should be the first action item, I'm sorry, or right before the first action item, because this is a discussion slash.
Okay. So move to. Why can I not find the,
So you're gonna move 8.7 and 8 to be
8.1?
but you don't want 8.1 is the resolution following the public hearing.
Oh, does that make sense then?
Let me see the facts.
Yeah,
Okay,
so let's go after 8.1.
that makes sense.
Unless two filibuster.
Sorry for the amendment of the amendment.
So it will be after 8.1?
Yeah, that I will not.
Okay. So motion is to move items 8.7 and 8.8 to be after 8.1. All those in favor?
Bye.
Anyone opposed? Any, what's the word? Don't, yeah.
Sorry.
Abstain is the word I was looking for. Okay, so motion carries.
Thank you.
And then what time do you need to leave by?
Not sure yet.
So that, okay,
I'll stay as long as I can.
okay. And is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing none. And we will adjourn to closed. All right. All right, we're getting the thumbs up, so we're going to get started. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our open session. We are going to reconvene and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So go ahead and rise for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we have a few items that we have to take care of from closed session. On item 2.1, we took no action. On item 2.2, the board took action to suspend a permanent classified employee for 2 days, and that was a 5-0 vote. For item 2.3, we actually still need to take a vote. So do we have a motion on item 2.3?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this resolution. I'm sorry, the stipulated agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, so
Oh, wait,
we,
can I? Yes.
yep, you can second. So we have a motion by trustee Constant, a second by trustee Coleman, and all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion 2.3 passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 2.4, board took action to approve that item with a 4-0 vote. Or, it was 4 of us.
401.
Yep. Yep. Oh, 401, yes. And then board took action to approve item 2.5 with a 5-0 vote. All right, I am going to move on to the announcement of meeting protocols. And we do have a lot of new people tonight and a lot of students here for class, so I'm going to read them verbatim, and I will try to do it as quickly as possible. The Board of Trustees encourages public participation during the meeting and requests civility in the use of courteous language. The board does not condone the use of profanity, vulgar language, gestures, or other inappropriate behavior, including personal attacks or threats directed towards any meeting participant and/or district employee. There will be an opportunity to speak to the Board of Trustees on items not on the agenda during the public comment section, as well as opportunities to speak to each item on the agenda when that item comes up for consideration. In the interest of facilitating the conduct of the public's business, members of the public who wish to address the board during the meeting will have specific time limits as follows. If less than 10 members of the public wish to comment on agenda or non-agenda items, the time limit for each public comment will be 3 minutes per person, and if 10 or more members of the public wish to comment, the time limit will be 90 seconds. A complaint about a specific employee or employees of the district should be made to that employee's immediate supervisor or the school site principal as outlined in our board policy and administrative regulation. Please complete the comment form located on the table in the lobby, and we will call on you when it is your turn to speak. This meeting is being audio-video recorded and will be archived, and this meeting will be live streamed for viewing only. Link to the live streaming can be found at rjuhsd.us/livestream. All right, reports and communications. So item 4.1 is our board expectations, and our student board members are going to read those tonight.
Board expectations are prepare all students for life, college, and career, high quality academic opportunities for all students, support student academic success.
Engage in partnership with families and the community. The school is a welcoming, safe environment that serves as the center of student learning, activities, athletics, and performing arts. And promote a sense of community in our schools and the surrounding areas.
Utilize effective governance and business practices. Remain open, transparent, and accountable to the community. Serve as an employer of choice with the highest qualities, teachers and staff.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, then we will go on to our board reports. Are there any board members that would like to go first? Okay, we're going to stick with tradition, and Trustee Constant will be first tonight.
I'm quick, no report.
Oh, all right.
All right, I had a couple things I wanted to share. I was able to go to Adelante and have a great visit there with Principal Fernandez and enjoy their beautiful campus. That's something I really appreciate about that campus. It's clean, it's so well cared for, and enjoyed that visit. I was able to go to the State of the City and enjoy visiting with other members of our community there. Met with Superintendent Becker and Assistant Superintendent Dobson separately and was able to have a nice visit with them. I had an interview with Sam Yee, who is a student editor of the Granite Bay Gazette, about the phone policy, so I look forward to seeing that upcoming article from her. And I attended the Board Policy Review Committee meeting as an observer to help me out and give me a head start on understanding the policies. So that's my quick report.
All right, thank you. I will be quick as well, too. It's been a very busy couple of weeks at work, and then with my son playing water polo. It's my first time doing a high school sport with any of my boys, and I don't need to tell you all, but the time commitment is really a lot, and it's so much fun. So I've spent a lot of time visiting the pools at all the schools, because Roseville High doesn't have a pool, as you know. So we were at Ponderosa last week, and we're traveling all about. Tomorrow's Indracom. So that's been a lot of fun. I was at the State of the City with Trustee Coleman and Trustee Schutz as well, which was a lot of fun. We got to see Roseville High School's band, dance, and cheer teams perform. So that was awesome. Oh, were you there? Okay, I saw some hyping back there. You guys did amazing. And then today I was able to hear from Superintendent Becker at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, where he highlighted all of our CTE programs and dual enrollment courses. So he was our guest speaker today at the Chamber, which was a fun bonus for the week. And that's it.
Let's see, I was at the Board Policy Committee meeting with Pete, and I will address any concerns the board and cabinet might have had over the muffin issues that we've been discussing. I was over at Granite Bay and helping with band pictures, and I had my daughter buy me a muffin. And even though they're smaller, they are still excellent. So that's my report.
Okay.
Yeah, so the State of the City, Roseville High School band, dance crew, cheerleaders did an awesome job, really kicked it off, got everyone energized, kind of set it up for the mayor to speak to everybody. But that was a nice event. Apart from that, I was at Wood Creek just this week helping out with the voter outreach, trying to encourage some of our seniors. It's time to opportunity to vote and check it out. So I always appreciate doing that. It's a great way to connect with some of our students, and you guys come up with some pretty good questions too. So that was a good event. But with that, I'll pass it over to these guys.
So these past 2 weeks at West Park have been, we've had a pretty busy couple weeks. We've been all in on our homecoming. So our homecoming is on September 27th. Our homecoming kickoff is on September 20th. And our overall theme for homecoming is decades. So the freshmen are 70s, the sophomores are the 90s, the juniors are the 50s, and the seniors are the 80s. We have our float and skit dance rehearsal the homecoming week going up until homecoming, so we can have our amazing parade, which is crazy. It's like our homecoming parade is, I love doing it every year. It's awesome. And on September 27th, we do have our homecoming, which is another awesome dance. It's on our football field this year with a huge DJ setup, video game trucks, tons of photo booths, and a lot more. And as always, it's great to be at Westport. Good time to be a Panther. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Aditya Danamudi, and I am the Granite Bay High School student representative. 2 weeks ago, we had our very first school dance, the Decades Dance, and our student body had lots of fun and they made very good memories. We also hosted the military night at our school, and we had good attendance close to 200 people attend, and the event ran smoothly. We have our second day of Club Rush tomorrow, so there's lots of excitement around the school. And next week on Tuesday, we have our Leadership Summit. So we will be having a speaker come and talk to leaders on campus, so team captains of sports and leaders of curricular programs at the school. And we'll be having organized discussions about what it means to be a leader and how we can go about and fix issues on our campus. And also, lastly, we will be starting to organize our homecoming-related events, which is next month, October. And our theme is Grizzlies Through the Ages. That is all. Thank you.
All right, love that. Okay, next, item 4.4, Superintendent's report.
Not a whole lot to report today. There's no communications. Just had the opportunity to present at the chamber to share all the great work of our Ed Services team and our CTE department and dual enrollment teachers. So it's always exciting to share and partner with our business community. And then had the opportunity last week to meet with superintendents from around the state for the California High School Coalition, which is high school districts, where we talk about and advocate for high school funding, legislation, pretty much all things that surround high school. And so it's always a great opportunity to share in strategies and problem solving with superintendents with like districts around the state. So that was it.
All right, and item 4.5, our committee reports. I know we did have the policy committee meet.
We have a nice long report for you.
Okay, you saved time earlier. So.
Yes, so I wanted to keep all my comments here, I guess. Although I will say, I still have not had any of these muffins. You'd think me, I would have been the first one to get a muffin, but
My daughter buy you one.
we'll have to talk about that at one of my next visits. So as you know, we have committees to go through all of the heavy lifting of policy review. So the policy board, policy review committee met August 29th. There are a whole lot of updates. There's a bunch of them that you're going to see on the consent calendar. I thought I'd give you a real quick summary of how that went. So the key updates from the superintendent's area, there's expanded definitions of confidential information and added safeguards against misuse. Most of this section is clarifying what is lawful public disclosure and what is confidential versus non-confidential. Most of that is to keep us in line with ever-changing laws. Under business services, there were significant update to website policies that reflect changes required by Assembly Bill 1785, which has to deal with prohibiting unauthorized posting of information of officials, and also the federal accessibility standards. There were a number of other things related to bus driver regulations, enhanced safety, in contractor options, training on transportation plans, driving limits, logs, inspections, accident reporting, retention. All of those are prompted by changes in laws. Under human resources, this is the area where we see a lot, and some of them seem like they're exactly the same, but they're different, and that's because they are exactly the same, but just apply to different categories of employees. Many of the changes that we saw in that area stem directly from a court case, Tennessee versus Cardona, which had a number of issues related to Title IX regulations and reverted to pre-August 1, 2024 enforcement on sexual harassment and discrimination. There were other changes that were required because of SB 1137, protected classes, and AB 3074 requirements that ban Native American derogatory terms. There's clarifications on volunteers and appeals process and a bunch of other things, including some restrictions related to driver's license per SB 1100. So just a lot of different law updates there. In education services, there were changes related to charter schools and the policies. That included some deadlines that we have to meet, and the deadline, I believe, was extended to 2026. There was some AI policy changes that establish usage principles and some SB 483 behavioral intervention preventions or prohibitions which relate to prone restraints. Under student services, AB 2887, AB 2968, AB 1858, SB 153, SB 483, AB 3074. As you can see, our state legislature does a great job of continuing to make law after law after law after law. That might have been an editorial comment, sorry. These are related to safety plans, drills related to arm assailant drills, instructional continuity, directory information, restrictions on what can and can't go into board minutes, a variety of things like that. We did not receive any public comment at the meeting. The committee recommends board approval of everything that I just discussed with 2 exceptions, and those are going to all be on your consent agenda. There were 2 batches of, or 2 sets of policies that the board did not take action on. That's Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5145.3 and Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 6145.2. The committee did not have any extended discussion on these, knowing that it was something of broader interest and some concerns we had with conflicting laws at the state and federal level. Those will be considered separately, listed on the agenda as 8.7 and 8.8, but as we heard earlier, will be heard immediately following item 8.1. So that's a long report. That's because there was a lot. I think it was close to a 3-hour meeting going through all of these different items, and you will see them on your consent agenda. Did I miss anything?
That was excellent.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and just to reiterate really quickly before I call up item 4.6, so what Pete said is we'll still be hearing 8.7 and 8.8 as those policies, but they will happen immediately after item 8.1, and so it'll be a slightly out of order, but they'll still be 8.7 if you're wanting to do a comment card. All right, RSCA report. Come on up, Mr. Delorto.
So for once, I don't feel so bad of going so long. With Pete, I was trying to type as fast as I could, all those different numbers, and I know I didn't get them, so
Yeah.
it's okay, we'll get to them sometime along. RSCA is up and running along with everybody else, and after that first month of school, we all have a chance to kind of take our breath and take a look around and see what's going on. And it's amazing sometimes how far we've come, at the same time, how long it's taken to get somewhere. So hearing you talk about our state of the city, our mayor was in my senior class way back when, over at Oakmont when I got hired. And it's so interesting to see people want to live in this community, but not just live in this community, but also serve this community as you guys have stepped forward in your roles and such. And it's kind of heartening to hear people want to give back, however they end up doing that. And Kristen was a very good student, and she continues to be somebody who makes fun of me when I bump into her running and she's running faster than me, but that's not hard anymore. I also remember back when we started doing all these different things, how fast everything has been changing. When I first got hired back in 1990, I was asked, as people are always asked, what do you have for us? Any questions for us? And what I learned in my college preparatory, get ready for your kind of interview process and the way of getting a job is to never have nothing to say, so ask something. And so I asked back, what would you say is the reason why people would want to start their teaching career here in Roseville Joint Union High School District? And at the time period, the actual interview was done with our principal, and everybody else that was at the actual table were teachers. And Lori Butcher, who was one of the amazing teachers way back when, basically said, it's an interesting question. Well, I'm going to speak on behalf of me, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of the rest of the teachers. Unlike many of our bigger districts around Sac City and Elk Grove and such, this is a teacher-driven district. We make decisions based on things that the experts in the classrooms are really pushing through. The people that are actually working in English are the ones making the decisions on what we should be doing in English. And that doesn't happen everywhere. Many, many different districts have policies, and they'll be basically implemented on or given and such. So that was always something that stuck with me. And as I've told you, I've made my career here. But over the years, we went from a 2-school district to a 3 to a 4 to a 5 and now a 6. And it's become harder to coordinate all those things. If anybody who's been here for a while, Brad and I know because we both have the gray hairs to prove it. And Superintendent Becker, who came with the bringing of Antelope, we were a district that was still trying to manage that in between for a long time, working with our teachers in terms of curriculum advancements. And then some big things happened, one of them being COVID. And after that, we kind of then defaulted back. And for a while now, up until just recently, we've had a handful of our policies really being kind of made on high with not necessarily always a big conversation or debate or instruction or information discussion with teachers that are actually applying these in the classroom. And I am proud and happy to report that after numerous conversations with Dr. Karras and Amy Black and Josh Mason and others, we are reinstating and kind of starting to get back to some of our roots where we're working together on these different things and letting people basically have their expertise and being part of the discussion on where things go. You're going to hear an update later on tonight by Dr. Karras about Brisker and things like that and the chance or the need to bring back turnitin.com and a handful of other things that teachers have been using. And I have a lot of hope that in these last 3 years of my teaching career that we seem to be going back to a foundational way where we are partners in all of this. And it always hasn't necessarily been a struggle, but it always hasn't necessarily been a partnership either. There's been ebbs and flows in this. And so we're getting back to something that I think is a really foundational element that makes us different than others, even as we grow, even as we get bigger, even as we end up having former students sitting there as the mayor of this great city of ours, as we go through this process. But we've always had these problems. My very first year, our actual test scores were low in our required state English test. And I met for the first time with other teachers, including Lori Butcher and others, and we were sitting down with the district office. The person that was actually Dr. Karras at the time was Newt Clark, and we had all the district people basically saying, what are we going to do to help our kids write better? And it wasn't anything that was being told, this is what we will do. We were discussing as a group. And that's where we seem to be getting back to. And I hope that we'll continue down that process as we've been doing so far. As far as things I've been asked to then bring forward to the board, one of those is a change. I think, Pete, you were talking about in terms of state mandates, and Brad and I have talked in terms of requirements on driving and how many hours you can drive. We have some special ed teachers who drive at least 35 hours in a month, just trying to get their kids back and forth. And so we probably need to actually continue to talk through a little bit of a kind of a softening of some of our policies in terms of how we're going to be able to handle this. I've had a number of special ed teachers ask me to bring this forward, and a handful of coaches that are afraid that being that they're often the people driving their kids to these different golf tournaments or whatever, or water polo tournaments, that they're going to easily exhaust those times. So we'll have to figure out something in the process. I've been asked to bring that forward, so I'm bringing that forward tonight. Other than that, nothing new to report, other than a hopeful outlook on the future. Thanks.
I thought you said I was long. And are you sure you went to high school at the same time as her? Because you look a lot older.
Oh, my goodness. All right, moving on to public comment for items not on the agenda. And so far, let me just do a double check. I have comment cards, but they're all for items that are on the agenda. So is there anyone who is wanting to speak to something that's not on the agenda? Okay, just want to do a double check. So we will move on then to item 6, our consent agenda. Any questions or any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. We'll do a roll call vote on this one. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
Trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Trustee Hall is a yes. Trustee Franz?
Yes.
And Trustee Schutz?
Yes.
And then our student board members down there. Nico is a yes. Aditya?
Yes.
Okay. We have a approved consent agenda, 5-0. I gotta scroll for a minute here. Hold on one second. That was a long one. Okay, here we go. Now we are on to item 7. This is our public hearing for the adoption of Resolution 2518 for our instructional materials. So we will open a public comment on this item, and anyone here for public comment for the public hearing?
I will
Okay.
then move to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have
I'll
a
second.
second. Okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And did any of you need to make any comments on that item? Okay, okay. So moving on to item 8.1 is our adoption of Resolution 2518. And Dr. Cruz?
Yeah. Thank you, President Hall. This evening, we are bringing forward to you Resolution Number 2518, which justifies and testifies that we are sufficiently adequate in terms of providing all of our students instructional materials. As outlined in Education Code 60119, all districts must certify that all students have access to standards-aligned instructional materials in mathematics, science, history, social sciences, English language arts, including English language development, health, world languages, and appropriately laboratory equipment for our science courses. And so we ask, our staff does ask for your approval.
All right, anyone have any questions on this item?
Motion, oh, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution number 2518.
I will second it then.
All right, great, we have a motion and a second, and we will do a roll call vote on this one as well. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
And Trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Hall, yes. Franz? And Bill, Trustee Schutz? And our student board members? All right, motion carries 5-0 and 2 student board members to pass item 8.1. And then here's where we'll be taking item 8.7. So I'll do another call for comments on that one, just because we did move it earlier. So if anyone missed that announcement, if you want to comment on item 8.7, that is happening now. I see so far 5 commenters, which will mean that you have 3 minutes per person on this item. I'll call out the first 3 names here so that you guys can start coming up. So we have Lori C., and then next will be Nicole Young, and then after that, Meg Madden. So we'll do those 3 in that order, and then I'll call up the last 2. So, Lori C., you're up first. Good evening. Yeah, I'll get you.
Good evening. My name is Lori, and I have a sophomore in our schools.
Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure we have your clock going. And it's 3 minutes.
I'm not going to take 3 minutes.
Okay.
I have a sophomore in your schools, or our schools. I'm here to state my complete disgust and disappointment of the suggested policy changes of 8.7. Each of you will be remembered and responsible when you vote yes to approve these changes. You will be remembered and responsible for caving to the loud noise of protecting the privacy of our children. How about protecting the safety of the girls? You will be remembered and responsible when you take all the he or she out of this policy, and you will be responsible for any student who is harmed, injured, assaulted, or harms themselves because they are confused. And we just continue to just pave the way for that. You will be the board who didn't tell the students, no, you were perfectly made. We, along with parents and our guardians, are here to support you, is what we should say, to help guide you back to how you were perfectly made. I ask you to vote no on these changes. Keep boys out of school bathrooms and sports. Vote no to protect your students, as that is your ultimate responsibility. Vote no to protect the girls in your schools.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Nicole Young. After that, Meg Madden.
Can't move this? Oh, there we go. Oh, I think it's okay. So it looks like you guys were given a directive to update a policy to reflect a court case. And it doesn't look like anybody really read the case. Luckily, I did. It's called Tennessee versus Cardona. And it's a 2025 case vacated down Biden's Title IX regulations that tried to elevate gender identity to a protected classification. The Cardona case also held that forcing teachers to use names and pronouns based upon gender identity violates the First Amendment as compelled speech. Teachers who hold sincere religious beliefs have an added bias for refusing to play along with the gender identity game. This policy also violates the Equal Protection Clause under the U.S. Constitution. Yet the policy presented doubles down on allowing boys to invade girls' sports and spaces. Trustee Hall, 2 years ago, you stood on a podium and recognized that girls deserve fairness and privacy, yet you are going to add your name to a policy that violates what you say you stand for. Superintendent Becker, you know how I feel about this, as myself and a group of women and dedicated mothers have spoken up at CIF meetings begging to change the policies. What is happening now to girls is they are being silenced because they know the adults around them are cowards and will not speak out for them. They allow males to take consent away from them while the adults in positions of power stand around looking at each other saying, "Not it." We cannot keep failing our daughters. You have an opportunity to right this wrong and table this policy until you can come up with one that properly reflects the court case and Title IX. As far as state law, we all know federal law trumps state law, and I feel confident that is what will happen if somebody just makes that first move towards bravery and does the right thing by our girls. These girls are afraid. They are afraid to voice their opinions because they're the ones that will get in trouble. The onus falls on these children, and that is wrong. We are allowing them to be bullied into submission and silence, and that is unacceptable. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is Meg Madden. After Meg Madden is Amy Anderson and then Meg Weiss.
Hi, my name is Meg Madden, and I represent CAUSE, Californians United for Sex-Based Evidence in Policy and Law. We defend sex-based legal protections and advocate for reality-based education. The board is being asked to approve revisions that look small on paper but carry major consequences. Let me highlight two. First, the contradiction. The new policy defines sex correctly as the state of being either male or female, then continues the current irrational policy that sport, locker room, and restroom use be based on a person's claimed gender identity, not sex. You can't have it both ways. Protections based on sex are simply not compatible with protections based on gender identity. Inserting sex here is worse than meaningless unless you're going to remove all this gender identity language. Conflating sex and gender identity creates confusion for students, staff, and parents, and will put your district on very shaky legal ground. Second, the current policy does not treat sex as private, but the proposed changes will. But sex can never be confidential, like a grade or a medical record, because it's an observable fact. Now is not the time for patched-up policies trying to serve conflicting interests. It is time to look honestly at the harm gender identity policies have already done and will continue to do until California is compelled to correct. And that will happen. There is a huge tide shift happening on this issue. The simple fact is sex is a provable reality and can consequently be the basis for rational civil rights protections, while gender identity is not and cannot. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, Amy Anderson? No? Okay. Okay. And then last, we have Meg Weiss.
Good evening. I'm here because every student who walks into a California public school deserves safety, dignity, and respect. It's not a matter of politics, it's a matter of responsibility. When parents entrust their children to your care each day, they're entrusting you to a system bound by law. At the policy meeting earlier this month, I was disappointed to hear that Ms. Franz had reservations about including existing language. We're not talking about a change of a policy. This is existing language that protects students based on gender identity. I hope that since that date, you've consulted the district council and the law to come to see that excluding any protected class of students on our campuses would not only betray the trust we put in you to protect every single student, but importantly, would place the district in violation of California law. Singling out transgender students and making them feel less safe, less welcome, less able to succeed, that's discriminatory. It's not only harmful, it's unlawful. California law is unambiguous. The Education Code and the state constitution protect students from discrimination based on gender identity and expression. Every staff member in the district and the board itself carry the legal and ethical duty to uphold these protections. At the policy meeting, Ms. Franz indicated that the recent federal court ruling in Tennessee versus Cardona were at odds with state law. But let's be very clear, that ruling applies only to Title IX regulations in certain states. The ruling does not change existing law in California, which is stronger, clearer, and independently binding. Our state has chosen to protect transgender students, and those protections remain fully in force. This means that creating district policies that fail to recognize every student would expose the district to serious legal risks. It would place you in direct violation of California's own statutes and constitutional guarantees. Your role is not to enforce ideology, it's to ensure that every student in this district has the opportunity to learn, to thrive and grow into the person they're meant to be, free from fear. That's the promise of public education. I urge you to stand with the law, and most importantly, to stand with all of our students. They're watching and they're counting on you. I have a couple more minutes, so I'm gonna say I once had one of you come to me or a couple more seconds. Once one of you came to me and said, why is there so much welcoming for our LGBTQ students? It's because I've had to stand in front of this body 10 times defending their rights. And here we are again.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so moving into then board discussion, do we want to do our normal start with questions, or do our board policy members want to explain part of your?
I think,
I'd love to read. I don't know if you want to go first. or
can
I'll
I
go
just set the context real quick?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, the board policy committee did not recommend approval of this. So I know a lot of people think that this was on here with a recommendation for approval. And I want to say, and I'll hopefully not cover too much of what you were going to cover, but we have found ourselves in a position where state law requires us to have these policies. And they require us to adopt policies, and then we have organizations like CSBA, the California School Boards Association, that has their folks that write the policies to, quote, fulfill the obligations of the law. And what's interesting is when they send those changes to us, they send us sort of their base reason of why they're changing it, and they tell us these changes are required, but they don't identify what is specifically required in the language and what is not. And there's absolutely no clarity on what is required versus what CSBA has added to it. And there's a number of areas that we've seen over the years where there's some extra language that has been put into place. Our current problem on this and the item that follows this. There's 2 items in this agenda item, and then there's 2 items in the next agenda item. And for the folks watching, we have board policies, and then for each board policy, there's an administrative regulation. The policy is where we, as a board, say this is the policy of the school district, and the administrative regulation is how the superintendent tells us he and his staff are going to carry out those policies. But we run into problems, and we've run into this before, where we have state laws that push us one direction, and we have federal law and federal case laws that push us in another direction. And this is where we find ourselves right now, because we have this obligation to file state law, and we have a state administration that not only threatens, but follows through with legal action against school districts if we don't do exactly what they think we should do. Even though a lot of times they talk about how local control and local communities should be the ones that make the rules in their community. And now we have a U.S. Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney General in charge of civil rights that has taken a similar approach, but from the federal perspective. And they have issued demand letters sort of broadly to, most recently it was a letter to all school districts in California. And there is not only the directive of what they want us to do, but a clear indication that there will be follow-through on potential litigation following that. We have the case that was mentioned, and there are some key components of that case that we don't see in our policies, but there's other areas of that case that were put in there, almost as if our, quote, friends at CSBA pick and chose which sections of the court case they wanted to apply. And I also did read the full court case. And we also know that we have a Supreme Court case pending that is likely going to be bringing clarity. And for those people who think we should only follow state law because it's a directive, and those who think we should only follow federal law because it's supreme, we still have all that conflict until the Supreme Court rules. It's ambiguous. You saw that with our parental notifications. Even though we had 100 years of Supreme Court precedents that said over and over and over what parental rights were, we still had state laws that were clearly in conflict with that. So we find ourselves there again. Personally, I don't think we should be taking any action until the Supreme Court case shakes out, because we are in a position where we're almost like a pendulum getting knocked this way and then knocked that way, and we're changing this and we're changing that. Most of what's in here is already covered by other sections of our policies. I don't see necessarily a pressing need to jump into this. I do think that it's in our best interest as a board, and our best interest as in mitigating our legal risk, that we wait till the Supreme Court rules and we have some clarity. So that's where I would like to go without getting into all the details of the policy. If we end up discussing the policy, I have other comments, but I kind of want to give that more broader perspectives first, and hopefully that frames up whatever you may want to add in.
Right. I'd love to go next if I can.
Yes.
All these policies were updated due to the Tennessee v. Cardona court decision that rolled back the enforcement of Title IX 2020 rules. Yet the changes CSBA recommended did not roll everything back and cherry pick, like Pete mentioned. If you read through all these policies, there's a clear message that students shouldn't have to endure sexual harassment or discrimination under any circumstances. That student safety is the district's primary concern, and I agree with everything that you read in there regarding those issues. Yet once you read that we will allow students who have decided that they identify as a different gender into bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports of the opposite sex, all of these policies are pointless. The court held that the entirety of Title IX makes it abundantly clear that discrimination on the basis of sex means discrimination on the basis of male or female. And throwing gender identity into the mix eviscerates the statute and renders it largely meaningless. I remember in our old boardroom, we had a 50th anniversary celebration for Title IX. I think there was 3 of us on the board at the time. We had so many girls show up who participated in different sports. They were sitting on the floor in front of us, and now it feels like that's just a farce as we sit here in this room and we act like there's nothing we can do for these girls now. By allowing boys to compete in girls' sports, we are erasing girls' accomplishments and in many cases putting them in physical danger, and we are telling girls that they don't matter. Girls and boys have a right to a safe, private, female-only or male-only space to go to the bathroom or change for PE. Girls and boys deserve bodily privacy and shouldn't be compelled to undress next to someone of the opposite sex. I know these policies line up with our current practice, and some people may think I should just continue to rubber stamp it in hopes that the courts will just work out the issue. But I can't help but think, how many more court decisions do we need before our California leaders in education and sports will decide to do what's right for our girls? One more case, two more cases, how many do we need? Our governor has also said publicly that he thinks boys participating in sports is unfair. Yet even he seems to throw his hands up in the air like he can't seem to do anything about it. I feel like our leaders recognize what the right thing to do is, but they are all looking at each other, hoping that someone else steps up and says enough so they can fall along behind. And I want to take a moment to speak to the kids who identify as a different gender. I know people often say, what would you say to those people? And I want to take a moment because they are important. And I would say, I believe you have great value, worth, and purpose to your life. I am sorry you have been told the lie that boys can become girls and girls can become boys. I don't believe it is loving or compassionate to tell someone that they can change their biological sex. I am sorry you've been taught that speech you don't like is the equivalent to hate speech. I don't hate you. I am sorry you've been taught that someone with opinions you don't agree with is trying to erase you. That's not true. I'm sorry the adults in our world have done a terrible job modeling how to disagree and still be kind and respectful. I would say, please share your story with me. Please tell me your questions about life, your challenges and pain. Bring your friends, I will listen to them. But even after listening to everything, I would still say with love and compassion that you cannot change your biological sex. I would say, let's talk about how you can feel like you belong and be included in school, but it cannot be accomplished by allowing you to force your way into the bathroom, locker room, and sports team of the opposite sex. These boys and girls also deserve to be comfortable and have their dignity and be safe in their spaces. And I would end again with saying, I believe you are valued, worthy, and have purpose to your life. I want to hear what others think, but I will share where my head's going for the next steps, just so that we can help frame any discussion that we might have. I would like to make a motion to give direction to our cabinet. I would like to understand the impact in our district of how many of our students are affected by allowing students into spaces based on their gender identity, meaning how many boys and girls in our district might find themselves in the bathroom with someone identifying as the opposite sex. How many girls or boys in our district are in the position where they are sharing a locker room or due to PE or due to sports with someone identifying as the opposite sex? And how many girls in our district are competing or playing with someone identifying as the opposite sex in a sport? And really we should do it with the boys also, but I don't think that's as common. And that's it. And I'm not referring to sports that don't have an equivalent girl sport. And I'd also like to know, do we have any individual record boards at our schools that have boys who identify as girls listed on them? And that's where my head is right now.
All right, thank you, Trustee Franz. Any other comments or statements before we move?
Sure, I can,
Okay.
I guess, I think your comments you just made kind of blurred over into both policy items.
I did, sorry.
So I think it's important to discuss them separately because some of the changes that are made to the policies are different for different reasons. And looking at the policy itself, it's not really, for the most part, adding anything new. It's reorganizing items. Now the case, the Tennessee versus Cardona case, it was really an injunction to prevent the most recent before now version of Title IX regs. It was to stop that from going into effect. So in effect, it reverted to the pre-2024 changes to Title IX. So we're back in the original process. It also removed gender identity as a ground for discrimination claims under Title IX. it's still, gender identity is still a protected classification in California and would be a subject to uniform complaints or other state discrimination claims based on that. So it's still a protected classification under California Education Code. And as pointed out, the Constitution, which we've all sworn an obligation to protect and defend. And looking back at, when we last looked at this policy, I'm talking specifically about 54.3, non-discrimination and harassment. We last reviewed that back in February 24, 22. There's two of our board members on the dais. And the board voted, which included really the same language about access to facilities that Trustee Franz has a direct issue with, that the board, including Trustee Constant and Trustee Howe, voted, and that board voted unanimously to adopt those changes, which are really reflected in our current policy, just reorganized differently, and in some ways to align with Title IX, which now no longer applies to complaints related to gender identity discrimination. So kind of with that, and I'm going back to what Pete said earlier, this is the current state of the law. And there's, in California, so there's repercussions by not jumping into something before it's really been decided, and that's, as a lawyer, I follow the law, I advise following law, even my non-biased lawyer self advises that, no matter what your personal view is, that's the best way to go, the most conservative, because what's going to happen is we're going to jump into something and potentially have liability concerns from both sides, from individual students. So those are my 2 cents. And my feeling is, as far as this action, which also, we're focusing on one particular issue, but as noted in the agenda, we also updated for some new laws that include related to discrimination, include a combination of 2 or more protected classes. It makes permissive rather than required to use restorative justice, cultural-sensitive programs, and regular checks, etc., related to incidents of racist bullying. This change was made because state law encourages but does not mandate these measures. And then also similar with the regulation. And I don't honestly think it's accurate that our agenda says a new section, support for intersex, non-binary, transgender, and gender non-conforming students was added, because it's really been in our existing policy and regulation. So I guess, long story short, I don't see a reason not to approve this moving forward. It doesn't change what the state of the law is now. If we get a court case coming through that is controlling and something that we need to follow in California, then we can bring this back and adopt those changes at that point. But as of now, status quo, we're following what the law says. I think my suggestion, and hoping that's the way we go today.
All right. Any thoughts from you, Trustee Coleman?
Sure. I think so on this particular item, we're talking about BP 5145.3 and AR 5145.3, correct? Both the board policy and the administrative regulation. I actually am fine with the board policy. I think that it's totally in line with the law, and I don't have any problem with the board policy itself. The administrative regulation, I do have some questions about. The first part of the regulation goes along all right. I think I think overall, I'll give my overall, I feel like there's unnecessary duplication of legal protections in there. I think non-discrimination and harassment are already covered adequately. And so I feel like if we want to talk about it, I think there's a lot of just duplication that's going on in there that isn't necessary. I feel like I'm trying to decide. I feel that I am not would not be in favor of adopting this policy as it is written. If we need to do part of it tonight and accept part of it and leave part of it, that may be. So those are kind of my initial thoughts.
All right. Did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. And Bill, I appreciate your comments, but these two aren't inextricably linked, because if you look at the language in 5145, it has the language regarding sex segregated facilities, locker rooms, the same exact verbiage and language from the athletic competition. And while I know they are distinctly different, where one's harassment and one's Title IX, I think when you read the court case, it's not saying these are strictly limited to Title IX. It's talking about the issue, and that issue, as you know, court cases are often applied to other similar laws that are similarly situated. Now, while Bill, you're also correct, it reflects current law. There is nothing in law that says how and when we have to adopt this, particularly on the AR side, but any of the policies. Many school districts have this scheduled to be coming at the end of this year, beginning of next year, because regardless of what we have in our policy, we know that if we were to have an issue that created a conflict, whether it's in our policy or not, state law is going to govern how the courts look at it. And so I think, again, this seesaw or the whiplash going back and forth on these policies, I would much rather wait. I do agree with Tiffany, the BP 5145 is minor changes, and it's really the AR and how we're going to actually do this, or how we think we may do it. And there's a lot of issues. If you look at some of the language related to student records, it conflicts with our parental notification policy. It just clearly conflicts with that. It also clearly conflicts with Supreme Court precedents on those records. So to adopt an administrative regulation quickly, while we're waiting for things to shake out, and we know it's going to conflict with other laws, I just don't think is prudent for us to do at this point. So personally, again, I'll reiterate, I know we had a motion on the floor sort of, but it didn't get seconded. So Marla, I don't know if you want to remake that. Okay. Personally, I would like to make a motion that we drop both these items at this point, and we direct staff to bring these back to us once we have a ruling in the case that's pending before the Supreme Court. So that's a motion.
And you're referring to Supreme Court, this potential Supreme Court decision that's coming back in potentially October?
Well, no, the Supreme Court.
They're hearing it in October.
The Supreme Court session is from October to June, so sometime within that time frame. And just to clarify, my motion was a double motion for 8-7 and 8-8, since they're inextricably, I think I messed that up, linked.
But I guess I take issue with that because there are definitely differences and changes made in those. And my understanding from the board committee, there were different reasons why the policy around interscholastic sports was taken issue with. So I think they should be discussed separately and action taken separately.
Well, there was almost no discussion at board policy in depth on this, because once.
But I guess I'd like to hear more clearly. I mean, we've heard a broad sense of a lot of issues with them, but specific to that policy on the interscholastic sports.
So what I'm going to ask is just let's give a chance for my motion to either be seconded or not. And then if we have a motion on the floor on it, then we can decide if we're going to debate it. But I haven't heard a second yet.
Well, I'll second so we can talk about it.
Okay. So now talking to the motion, I do believe that we should wait for this to get settled. And there's no rush for us to take action on this tonight. So that's my comments.
I'll ask a question to Rob if I can, hasty, just what are you able to do your job with if we don't do anything tonight?
If you don't take any action tonight, I would still have to be following the process as it's laid out, because that is the process based on ed code, based on CCRs, and that's dealing with a claim of discrimination that comes to my desk or working at a different site. I would have to follow those ed codes.
And you know what those are regardless of if we pass this policy, if we adopt the amended policy tonight or not?
I know what the education code says, yes.
Okay. I would also maybe ask Rob or Superintendent Becker, what are the legal obligations if we, and that was a concern of mine, if we adopt this tonight or if we don't adopt this tonight, what legal implications are there?
Well, as of right now, there wouldn't be any because we still would follow ed code. Although there's talk about the federal side, yeah, terms gender identity would take out of that. We have to remember, though, the law has been in place since 2013. We've been managing this for 13 years, 12 years now, and so that hasn't changed until the Supreme Court and/or the DOJ's injunction relief with CDE and CIF, but that's not for another at least 3-4 months before that'll see a courtroom. So those things are all in the works. We're hearing Supreme Court either late this month, early October. Maybe they'll do it quickly. I mean, there's been some consideration that it'll be a quick decision, and so we'll go there. But until that happens, what Rob would follow, if there were to be a case, you follow Ed Code 220-221. That's been around since 2013. That doesn't change. That's what makes this thing entirely messy, is federally, nothing has been determined. We went back to the 2020 Title IX regs, but you can't just arbitrarily change those, and that's why the federal government's kind of stuck with that right now, which is why they tried to take it through the Senate. It failed. It's why you've seen a lot of things stall, and until the Supreme Court decides, the federal stuff is stuck. And so again, we're California, so we have this California law, federal in waiting law, and why we're kind of in this, as Trustee Constant said, we're in a waiting game right now. And trust me, in my other position too, the waiting game is very hard because people are waiting for something to happen, and we hope it does. One way or the other, we need to not be stuck. So hopefully that happens. But long answer longer, yeah, Rob would just follow current education code versus policy.
Title IX would still apply, and you'd have to follow that for the complaints that fall within Title IX.
Absolutely, and so the distinction is that for, as you guys have identified, a claim of sexual discrimination wouldn't necessarily be something that we would investigate under Title IX. We would now investigate that under 5145.3, which would be discrimination. So we'd look at it through that lens and be using the UCP process.
And complaints related to discrimination based on gender identity would still be processed under our uniform complaint procedures if those came in.
Correct.
Okay, so there's not then, sometimes the policies that come are mandated by a certain timeline. And so that's why, we have policy committee when we have them, and they get put on consent because they have to be passed by a certain date. And so this does not fall under that.
There's no mandate that we accept the board policy and the AR as it is today. But again, as we've been discussing, I still have to follow the ed code. I still have to follow the California Code of Regulations when it relates to discrimination.
Right.
And real quick, President Hall, same thing with the athletic one. There's so many, that's like a catch-all policy. All the other stuff in there, absent this part of the conversation of gender identity, is already happening anyways. So even if that policy didn't exist, we're still doing emergency action plans, concussion protocol, AED devices, wet bulb globe and temperature reads. All that happens anyways. It's just a catch-all in an athletic competition policy. But it already all exists and it's already been implemented. So we're okay if they sat and.
I would also just add, there is, if this, well, it's important that our practice is keeping our kids safe, and as we know, we do all that. There's a difference between not having a discussion on this at all and having a clear discussion and a vote where we are saying that we're awaiting this law change. So it's not that we're not doing anything.
Right.
And I think some people think that if we vote this down, then it's a statement of inaction. If we were to have a litigation claim against us, you can bet that the transcript of this proceeding would be part of that, and they would be hearing this discussion of our concerns and our desire to wait for clarity. And so that's one of the reasons it's important for us to have these discussions and for us to articulate the reasons why we're doing what we're doing so that it's readily apparent when it's reviewed Monday morning quarterback, however many months down the line. So.
Would there be,
Are you guys trying to get our attention to speak, the student board members?
oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were trying to get our attention. I didn't want you to feel ignored.
Would it be feasible, and maybe, would it be feasible tonight to pass the board policy 5145.3 and the AR 5145.3 through the issues unique to the intersex, non-binary, transgender, and gender nonconforming? Because I think that's where these questions are, these legal questions are, is in that second part. And then we could go ahead and update the part of our policy that is perhaps not in question.
I would say we should probably vote on the motion, and then if it fails, then we can contemplate other action. Because we have a motion and a second on the table.
I just have a concern about that amendment, Tiffany, just out of concern that our existing policy reiterates what the law is, and when we're eliminating that, to me, it's going in line with what the board has been doing, and sending a message to our students who are most marginalized and vulnerable, that despite what was said, we don't care about you. And by taking that out completely, which we'd be effective doing, it would be drilling in that message again.
So can I just ask you, what do you say to the girls that are affected? You're so concerned about how, I mean, I'm concerned about all kids, but I feel like every time I hear you speak, you are dismissing what is happening to the girls who are forced to either go to the bathroom with boys who identify as girls, or change, but that's part of I don't know how many girls we have. What do you say to that?
And have you done the research and talked to administration about this and what's being done? Are students who are in that comfortable position being accommodated in any way?
No, but those girls have to make the accommodation.
Well, everyone has the same rights to privacy as the other students.
And I guess that's just where, but.
To me, I'm trying to not put a personal interest ahead of all the students in the district, which I feel
But when you
is
say
being done.
all, you're talking about a small subset.
Right, our most marginalized and vulnerable students is what I'm seeing.
And so the girls that, again, are being dismissed, how are they not becoming marginalized?
I don't think they're being dismissed. I think they're being accommodated if they have a concern or in those lines.
They shouldn't have to be accommodated to be on their personal space, and that's just where we disagree. We truly disagree about that, but I think you.
Well, it's the perception that I'm concerned that students are gonna face. I don't know if that's how the students feel about this generally.
They're not allowed to say they disagree. Did you read the policy
Well,
that if they complain,
maybe-
have you seen the vitriol?
Maybe that's, I don't know, our site administrators who have complaint procedures are people they can talk to if they have concerns. We have wellness centers where they could go talk to if they have concerns. Do we have, do I encourage any students to come talk to me if they have concerns? I assume our other trustees would as well. We're not gonna come to an agreement for sure on this. I just take issue with the reason why it's being reflected again.
So I'm going to call for the question.
Yeah, I forget what the motion was that you made.
The motion was to not take action on either 8.7 or 8.8 and direct staff to return these to us after we have clarity based on any Supreme Court decision.
And you made a second?
The second one.
Okay. So let's go ahead and take a vote on that, and then we'll move forward from there. So all of those in favor of Pete's motion, say aye.
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 I'm gonna say no, but just with a clarification of why. Can I say that now, or does it matter?
Were you an aye?
I am trying to decide, sorry.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about perhaps wanting a little more discussion
So
on it before we move
The
forward.
vote's been called, so we either have to vote or abstain, and then, because we're in the middle of voting now.
Okay, I'll abstain at this point.
Okay. So we have then 3-0-1?
Well, 3-1-0.
3-1-0,
And then Bill can explain his
I mean,
0-1.
3-1-1.
Thank you. So part of it was for what I've been discussing, but I'm also concerned about other things that we're not adopting as part of our policies. You know, on the athletics competition, it's more than just safety. We've got in here changes about prohibiting the use of derogatory Native American terms for school athletic team mascots, et cetera. I think those are important things to recognize and that we're leaving out. I appreciate the fact that we're keeping the policies in place as is, but then I think we all realize that whether or not we write it in a policy, if the law requires it, we have to follow it, and if we don't, then, you know, Pete referenced some of the potential repercussions of that. So I appreciate that aspect of it, but I have to vote no for the reasons I stated.
And I think if we had a team that had one of those names, I would share the concern, but it doesn't really apply to us.
And I think, I appreciate what you're saying, Bill, and there probably were votes in the past, you know, where we sort of, all of us inherited this law, the 2013 or 2014 law. We walked into it, we inherited it, but I feel like to continue affirming it by voting yes on things, we're affirming a law that I don't personally agree with. And so even though I know we still have to do it and we still have to follow it, I don't have to put my name on it. Whereas, you know, I don't know. I get that that is conflicting, but it already is conflicting because what the federal government is saying contradicts what the state law is saying. So we're already in a conflicting, contradictory legal situation, which is why I agree with waiting until we get the Supreme Court ruling, which will hopefully provide clarity. My fear is that it will leave it to each individual state still, so.
Yeah, don't give them any ideas.
So anyway, we have then a 3-1-1 vote, and
And so can I make my motion just, because I would like to understand the impact of our district with all this. You know, we go round and round on this and we don't, I don't know how many students are actually being affected by this.
So it wouldn't be a motion, it would just be asking staff to
So,
bring information back.
yeah,
yeah,
All right, so I don't
give
need a second for
direction.
that.
we will look into that. I will just say, we'll make a list and run it by legal. There are some discriminatory actions. We can't ask certain questions. We can't take numbers and counts.
Well, so I wasn't.
But
asking
we're
for
going to
that.
play with it. I just want to
No.
declare that a little bit so that,
I understand.
Yeah.
I wasn't asking
Yeah.
It was more the impact, so I
Right.
don't want to know if there's 5 or 10 at some
Right.
school. It's the,
Yeah.
okay.
No, we're going to work through it. I just wanted to clear that, but,
No, I
you
understand.
know.
I was careful with how I was trying to ask.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Okay, so we are scrolling back up then.
Forgive me,
Oh.
President Hall, some of you aren't, a lot of you aren't here. I mentioned in the beginning that I may have a work commitment I have to leave for. I have to leave right now, but thank you
Okay.
for the time and good to see everybody. We'll see you next time.
Okay, no worries, thank you. Yes, that's why we moved 8.7 and 8, because we knew that he would have to leave early, and I did not explain that earlier, so thank you, trustee Schutz. So we're scrolling back up then to 8.2.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution 2514.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve item 8.2, our DSA inspection services. Roll call vote then. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
And trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Hall, yes. Franz? And our student board members? All right, so 8.2 passes 4-0-1? 401. 401, okay. And then moving on to 8.3.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2515.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on 8.3, our resolution for inspection services. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
Trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Trustee Hall? Trustee Franz?
Yes.
And our student board members? All right, motion carries 401. And then 8.4, ooh. Yay.
As
fun.
Lauren comes up, I just wanted to remind the board, I was going to earlier, I didn't want to interrupt the discussion, just always remember, I think I got word a few board members forgot to unmute, and we're being live streamed now, so just a friendly reminder to keep, especially when you're going back and forth with discussions, so that people at home can hear you, so.
Okay.
And that, I give time for the presentation to go up for Lauren.
Got the button on. Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Lauren McGee. I am the Senior Director of Accounting, and tonight I'm here to present to you our 24-25 unaudited actuals. Oh, it like buzzes when you push the button. Our district's 24-25 year-end financial position has changed since budget adoption, which was presented to you on June 10th. The general fund ending fund balance has increased by approximately $4.4 million. Overall, for 24-25, there are both positive variances in both our revenue, which signifies additional revenue either earned or recognized, and expenses, which was signifying a savings to our budget. Most of the variances presented to you in Exhibit A are considered one-time savings. Based on our total savings available to ending fund balance of $3.2 million, we will be contributing $800,000 to our pension fund. That's based on our 25% that we contribute, which will bring our pension fund balance to approximately $6 million. Okay. The next two slides are presented our multi-year projections. The first one was presented to you with our adopted budget at June 10th. And the second one is our actual financial results. So you can see the change in the 24-25 column. I also just wanted to point out that in 25-26, in the out years for the multi-year projection, there was no changes made to revenue and expenses. Changes to those out years will be made when we bring our first interim budget to you in December. I also wanted to remind everyone that the reserve cap was not triggered for 25-26, which was that you cannot have more than a 10% reserve cap. But we do try to keep that as a target for our out years in case that ever is triggered in a budget year. Okay, so next steps, we actually have our auditors, Crow, which is our external audit firm. They will be out here next week testing all of our numbers and preparing our audited financial statements. We will be bringing our financial results to the board in December, as well with our first interim budget report that I mentioned earlier. And then in January, we will have our first look at our governor's proposed budget for 26-27. And with that, Steph recommends that the board approves our unaudited actuals for the year ended June 30th, 2025.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, we got a question.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
It's always great to have you, because we know you're the real controller of the numbers. So, no offense, Joe. Of course, you do it all at his direction, we understand that, but we know you do the hard work. I appreciate that our policy has that 25% trigger to move into our pension trust fund, which is, as you know, a personal priority of mine.
Yep.
We have a large share of net pension liability. I can't remember the exact number, but it's
a lot.
way bigger than 6 million. And I know I say this over and over, but just to remind people, that number is for benefits that our employees have been promised, accrued, and earned in their time here, and that's the liability of what we have not put aside to pay for those. I know that we like to keep a sharp eye on the 10% number, and thank you for mentioning that and reminding us. We always want to make sure that we manage our reserves appropriately, and we're very fortunate that we've had strong reserves, and we have money we have reserves at a level higher than the state requires. What I would like to see is, since we're still at, a 10.2, I think it is, total unassigned reserve level, I would like to see us bump up that 800,000 just a little bit more. I think it's important that we manage our reserves and try and keep at or just below 10% and not above 10%. Even though we didn't trigger the state this year, it puts us in a position of potentially triggering the state next year. And I think we should have a strong commitment to funding that pension trust whenever we can. So in the spirit of that, knowing that our policy is a minimum of 25%,
Yep.
I would like, as we consider approving this, accepting this today, that we give direction to bump that up, whether it be 100,000 more or 150,000, whatever it takes, to get it just below the 10% and put that little extra in there. And I've had discussions with Joe on how manageable that is. And he has told me, unless you've changed your mind since we talked, that it is a manageable number for us to do. I think it's reasonable and prudent in the observation of our multi-year projections, the management of our reserve, and fulfilling the commitment we have to you and all the other employees of our district that we've given these promises to and that you've earned. So that's my suggestion to the rest of the board.
A question I had, and is that, could we potentially use that money to, rather than going towards pensions, which it sounds like we're doing great at, is perhaps use it towards a facilities project that we've been wanting to do, or can we choose somewhere else to put that money besides into the pension?
Well, I would say we're not doing great because our liability is, 100 million? What's that number? It's
yeah.
115, if I remember.
And we have
So-
the new actuarial report from
Yeah.
STRS and PERS coming out. So
We have less than 4% saved for it, so.
So what do you recommend?
I think going to the pension trust makes more financial sense. I just pulled numbers really quick. The pension PARS had a 14% annual return in the last year, where when our money sits in the county treasury, we got 3.9%. So you're earning more interest if you're able to contribute that money over there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'm glad
Yep.
that you two love this. Right?
So I'm willing to make a motion if there's no more questions. I just didn't want to take time away from questions.
Realize that. Okay, no questions.
So the motion would be to approve the unaudited actuarial revenue expenses with the direction to crunch the numbers and manage that reserve so it's just under 10%, making sure that that excess goes as a contributory amount to our 415 trust. Yep, thanks.
I'll second, if we need to second that.
Yes. All right, motion and a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, motion carries 401. And thank you. Okay. 8.5, we have another resolution. This one's 2516. Any questions?
Got some little feedback. This is pretty straightforward. It's a reporting mechanism where it's not really our GAN limit, it's the state's GAN limit, but we have to go through this process each year when we have our unaudited financials. So staff recommends approval of our GAN limit and sending these numbers officially to the state.
I would make a motion to approve this GAN limit. It's a resolution, number 2516.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we will go down the row on this one. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
And Trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Paul, yes?
Yes.
Franz, yes? Student board members? All right. Motion passes 401. And then moving on to 8.6, adoption of the 26-27 school calendars. It's my first year having all my kids at the same school, so this one used to just get me so upset. I was more relaxed this year.
Well, we've been working hard with our partner districts the last few years. We've gotten closer and closer. So
Looking good.
same processes in the past. We've worked with RSCA leadership. We've worked with district leadership. We've shared them with our partner districts, received their feedback. And so I bring to you the proposed calendars for 26-27 school year for our comp sites, our alt ed site, as well as a separate calendar for Roseville Adult School because they're in a year-round program. And they mirror the same pattern as the last couple of years. And because we get them out early, it helps our partner districts. And when they sit down to negotiate, and we're pretty close, we're still always going to have a couple of bumps. Dry Creek likes to take a 2-week spring break, so they always get out a week after us. But for the most part, we're pretty much in alignment. So staff recommends approval of both calendars for the 26-27 school years.
I'll make a motion to adopt the school calendars.
I'll second.
All right, and this one we can just do all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, anyone opposed? No. All right, so we are gonna skip 8.7, 8.8, those are done, and that leaves us at staff reports. Anything over there? No, all right. All right, item 10, our Horizon report. You can see our next meeting is September 23rd. We are having a parliamentary procedures and governance training October 1st, and the rest of the meetings through the end of the year.
Can I just, a couple things I'm looking forward to, is a couple topics. We
Yes.
really jumped on boundaries in the spring, but we haven't come back to those, so I'm feeling like maybe we need to jump back to boundaries at some point, and so that would be something I'm looking forward to. And then following up on our June 10th board meeting, looking forward to feedback about our phone policy implementation and getting that on our calendar.
All right, anything else?
I forgot one thing earlier.
Okay.
Our state, as you know, I'm not a very big fan of at least the people inside the capital of the state, but today is the 175th anniversary of our statehood. And that's something to celebrate because we have a great state in spite of some of the craziness that happens here.
All right, that is worth celebrating. Okay, well, with that, then, do we have a motion to adjourn? Sure. That was a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. All right, all those in favor of adjournment? Aye. All right, there we go. Thank you all for